Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Medical Fitness Podcast. I'm Jeff Young, and my co host, Dr. Thomas Hammett, will be joining in future episodes. Our podcast is brought to you by the Medicine, Rehab, and Fitness Institute and JY Kinesiology LLC, both of which are dedicated to medical fitness education and building the bridge between medicine, rehab, and fitness. You can learn more at mrfinstitute.org. The purpose of our podcast is to provide you with principle and evidence based content on all things related to exercise science, strength and conditioning, medical fitness, and building the bridge between medicine, rehab, and fitness. In this episode, I interview my friend and colleague, Jeff Jeran. Jeff is the current chair of the board of directors for the Medical Fitness Association, and in my opinion, should be inducted into the Medical Fitness Hall of Fame. He's opened 6 very successful and award-winning fitness centers over the last 18 years. And honestly, all clinicians and fitness professionals can learn from his past and current experiences. Jeff drops a lot of knowledge during our talk, which includes why the Medical Fitness Association and National Strength and Conditioning Association should collaborate, the provider referral program at Valley Health where he works, what he means by medical integration, how fitness professionals can successfully collaborate with clinicians, and the importance of cradle to grave fitness. If you want to be among the best, you have to learn from the best. So I hope you take the time to listen to our great talk. Let's dive in. All right. Hello, everyone. I am extremely excited to welcome as my next guest on our podcast, Jeff Jeran, who is a friend, a colleague, and as you're getting ready to hear, an absolute subject matter expert and industry leader. He is the chair, the current chair of the board of directors for the Medical Fitness Association, and is doing a bunch of other things as well. Jeff, I'm really excited to have you and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It's an honor to be here and talk to you. And it's great to see you again. Thanks for coming down to our state clinic a few weeks ago and presenting. It was a fantastic topic. So excited to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah, absolutely. So, just a real quick background for the listeners to have an idea of how I know Jeff and how we met. Back in like 2017, I was asked to um, basically create and then be the chair of a fitness and medicine member interest group for a medical organization called the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. This organization is strategically partnered with the Medical Fitness Association. And so I had 2 physician co-chairs. And as we got together and talked, how we were going to operate this member interest group, one of the things I said to them was I would love to create like a little board of directors and an advisory board for our member interest group, which I'm not sure at this point if the ACLM would even allow something like that, but back then they did. And so it didn't take long for me to get on the phone with, at the time, the CEO of the Medical Fitness Association, Bob Boone, told him about what's going on. I had actually already met him because I had presented a couple times at the Medical Fitness Association's conferences. Got on the phone with him, told him about the vision, and he said, I need to introduce you to Jeff Jeran. He is an all-star. You two are really going to get along. And that's really how we met. And we've been collaborating ever since. We'll talk a little bit about some of our collaboration during this interview because we were trying to build this patient referral subcommittee for this member interest group, and then the pandemic hit, and then my term for chair, expired, blah blah blah. But Jeff's also on the executive council for the National Strength and Conditioning Association's Special Populations Special Interest Group, which I chair, which is another way that we closely collaborate. So with that as a background, I'm just really fortunate to know this guy. And Jeff, so can you do me a favor and just start by just taking as much time as you want to tell your story because it's an interesting story. So tell your story and how it led to your role at Valley Health, where you work in Virginia, your role with the Medical Fitness Association, and anything else you want to include as part of your story.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for all those kind words. My head just got a little bit bigger, but yeah, so a little bit on my background. Really, where I'm at now is the furthest place I would have imagined when I started my journey, I guess. Growing up, I was a very competitive athlete playing baseball, football, basketball. I competed in downhill mountain biking, downhill skiing, and played competitive golf. And at that time, I think my purpose was to play some type of professional sport, mainly looking at playing professional baseball, as my father played for the New York Yankees and my grandfather was in the Pirates organization. So it was kind of in my blood. And that's where I thought, my life would end up, just like every, young male in America that dreams of that. So we'll fast forward a little bit past that time. When I graduated high school, I received a scholarship to play football at Fairmont State University. Went there for a little while. Started studying pre-medicine. Didn't really take to football at the collegiate level at that time, and then ended up taking another scholarship to another school called Addison Broadus University in baseball. So I took my 295-pound frame and transformed it into a 185-pound baseball pitcher, which
Crazy.
kind of got me learning a little bit more about strength and conditioning, and I kind of found a passion for it. As I grew up, my favorite movies were, Rocky, and I loved the training montages, and that's really what I, very passionate about: exercise and working out. After graduating from Addison Broadus, I got my bachelor's in science in sports medicine and athletic training. Really wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life. I didn't know if I wanted to be an athletic trainer, 22-year-old graduate, wasn't sure where I was going to go. So I ended up packing up my car, moved to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, picked a bunch of different odd jobs for the summertime, lived a beach life for a little bit. At that same time frame, I received a call for a job out in California. So I packed up my little Ford Probe and drove across the United States, did Route 66, and took a job in Huntington Beach, California. And it was a sales job. And I was very good at it and could have made a really great living at it. But it didn't satisfy me, or I didn't find my purpose in that aspect of that type of job. So I always saw myself as a bit of a healer, or wanted to be a healer. And so I enrolled into chiropractic school in Atlanta, Georgia at Life University. So again, I pack up my Ford Probe with a trash bag of clothes, mountain bikes, and skis, and drove back across the country and ended up getting a place to live in Buckhead. And 2 weeks after enrolling in chiropractic school, the university there lost their accreditation. And so I wasn't really prepared to continue down that path if, with them losing their accreditation and not knowing how long it would take for them to get their accreditation back. So I moved back home and took a job as a personal trainer and a salesperson at our local club. And while I was there, I was kind of shining in that role. Really enjoyed working with clients and talking to individuals, and had a kind of a gift for sales. So I kind of thrived. After about a month into those two roles, the owner of the club said, "You're my new GM, and I'm leaving for 4 months and I'm going skiing." So I learned how to run a club kind of the wrong way, and learned what you don't do. Um, but while I was there, I was able to get my father involved in exercise. At that time, he was about 320-pound man, type 2 diabetes, blood pressure problems, the whole gamut, metabolic syndrome. And I kind of came to heart with him and said, I have a lot of things that I still need to do to make you proud of me, and I want you to be around. So I took that as, I'm going to work with my dad. We're going to train together. We're going to change our lives, and so we did. And for a year, my dad was exercising super strong, started wearing gold chains, feeling good about himself, lost around 65 pounds, and was really healthy. Unfortunately, he was playing golf one afternoon and he slipped and fell down a flight of steps. And he fell face first, head first, all the way down 2 flights of steps. Um, and when he hit the bottom, he ended up breaking C5, 4, and 6. and became a quadriplegic. Now he was an incomplete spinal cord injury. One of the one percenters. He had no feeling, couldn't breathe, was in the hospital for quite a while. And we got him into a rehab hospital, and we started making some little bits of progress. And my training in the background when I was working or doing football and baseball, I loved working in aquatics and in the pool therapy and doing a lot of activity in pool. And so I wanted to get him into aquatic therapy to help, get him to be able to start moving a little bit and just feel better. Well, unfortunately, he got MRSA while he was in the rehab hospital, which is a contraindication for aquatic therapy. And so it's just like most of what I always end up doing is I was like, all right, well, there's no big deal. We're in Morgantown, West Virginia. I'll just go back to school and I'll become an aquatic therapist and get my master's degree. And so that's what I did. I enrolled at WVU School of Medicine in their clinical exercise physiology program. And they had a specialization in aquatic therapy. So I did that. At that time, I also sat for the CSCS because I wasn't sure, maybe I was going to become a strength coach. I really wasn't sure exactly what I was going to end up being at that time. So I took that test, passed, ended up working with Mike Barwis. And those of you strength coaches that are listening to this probably know Mike Barwis a little bit. At that time, I didn't know anything about Mike. Someone said, hey, if you want to work with strength and conditioning, you need to go meet Mike Barwis. So I went over to the facility, the strength and conditioning area, and knocked on Mike Barwis's door. And in a raspy voice that he has, he's like, come in. And he looked at me and he says, what do you want? And I said, Mike, my name's Jeff Jeran, and I'm looking for a job and I'll work for free. And he said, you're perfect, you're hired. And so that's how I met Mike Barwis. And for 2 years, I worked with him with the wrestling team, basketball team, baseball team, and football team. And he actually got me a paid internship with the Philadelphia Phillies down in Clearwater, Florida. So I did that for a season. Took a little bit sabbatical from school while I did that. Came back home and got married to my college sweetheart that I met at Audison Broadus. And unfortunately, my dad passed away before I could graduate. And, I was very proud of what we were able to do and accomplish. My father was able to use his arms. We had him doing some modified leg lifts and leg presses, and we were on our way to actually getting him to maybe walk someday. And that took a big blow on me. And I ended up taking a job after that, after he passed at NIOSH in the CDC in Morgantown, and I was running their corporate employee wellness program, and did that for a little while. I really enjoyed the job. It's cool working with scientists and being able to create and learn how to talk to individuals that were doctors. Turns out, if I kind of foreshadow that, I guess that helps me into what I do now when I talk to providers. Working in that setting.
Let me just interject real quick and just
Yeah.
ask you at this point, how much time had passed since you graduated with your bachelor's? Because
So
it
when I
seems like it's
graduated,
years.
it was about a year and a half. I'd say. Let's see. I graduated with my bachelor's. I went back to school about a year and a half after, and then I did 2 years for my master's. So I graduated my BS in 2000, and I started my master's in 2003 and finished in 2004.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut
So.
you off there. I was
Oh
just
no, that's
curious.
okay. That's all right. So yeah, so here I am working at NIOSH and the CDC and learning all kinds of things. Unfortunately, my wife wasn't able to find a job, and so she found a job in Winchester, Virginia. And at that time, I guess I'm a bit of a narcissist and cocky. I was like, well, I can get a job anywhere. And so we moved to Winchester without me even knowing anything about the town. I didn't even know where it was. But I knew there was a hospital and that they were building a fitness center in my wife's hometown. And so I walked in the door, found out who I needed to talk to. Her lady's name was Dina Kent, and she was the executive director for rehab services for the health system. And I found her office and I knocked on her door and I said, hey, I'm here to hand in a resume. And I'm interested in maybe working in fitness. And so she said, well, sit down and we'll do an interview. And I said, well, I'm not ready for an interview. I said, I don't even have a tie on. And she says, ties don't mean anything. Sit down. And I said, oh, yes, ma'am. And so I sat down. 8 hours later, she hired me. It was an 8 hour interview. I interviewed with everybody in the health system that day. And she's like, you're perfect for the job, but it's 2 years away. Only thing I can give you is aquatic therapy 2 days a week. I was like, all right, well, that's the job I want. So I'll do this. Did that for about a month. And then another opportunity opened up to where I could open up a fitness center mixed with a rehab center. So I did that, which had an aquatic area into it. Did that for about a year and a half. And then the job I came to town wanting was called Hampshire Wellness and Fitness in Romney, West Virginia. It's a 33,000 square foot facility in a rural community of 2,000 people. It's quite amazing, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so when I took that job, that's when I got introduced to the Medical Fitness Association. I went through school. I'd never heard of the Medical Fitness Association. Did my master's, never heard of it. I was like, "What is this association?" So I ended up going to their annual conference and started talking to individuals and meeting people, and realized that that was exactly what I was looking to do for my father, was to run a facility that could take the 80% of the population who don't really use fitness centers or know how to exercise and put them in a safe environment. So I kind of found some kindred spirits through the MFA. And the thing I really enjoy most with them is their ability to network and share best practices. They're not afraid to share and tell you how they're doing things. They don't hide any secrets, because the what I like about the MFA is they know the stronger the MFA and the stronger our facilities are, the better it's going to be for the industry all around, and better for our communities. And so I guess that's kind of how I ended up into this role, and into Valley Health, and ended up opening 6 medical fitness centers now in the past 18 years. Um, all of them have been very successful, multiple award-winning facility certified medical fitness centers, and just continue to develop my passion for what it is that I do. Mainly, I wasn't able to do it for my father, and so now I'm doing it for other people's fathers and mothers, and so that's the purpose I found now in life, that wasn't looking for, but it found me, and I am in the exact right spot for that. And so, very thankful for the health system I work for Power Wellness, and a group management group I work with in Chicago, and for the MFA for providing me all this guidance, and kind of where I'm at now.
I am, first of all, we've talked many times over the last 4 or 5 years that we've known each other. And when I was in Winchester at the NSCA, Virginia, West Virginia State Clinic, and you gave me a VIP tour of your facility, and that gave us a couple hours to talk. And yet, still, some of your story, I wasn't aware of. And I find it really, I love hearing people's stories. I love because you get out of college and you think it's going to be a straight line to wherever you want to go, and instead it ends up being the waviest thing ever. And you're a perfect example of that. But it's so intriguing, and I actually think that there's some takeaways for people. Sometimes you gotta get out of your it's the whole cliche, getting out of your comfort zone and not being afraid to do things. And you just show that you're not afraid to just walk up to people's offices and knock on their door and things
Hmm.
like that. And that's just a something that some people, some people have in their DNA and some people don't, but you obviously do. And there's so much of your story that unfortunately, well, like I've been saying to my past guests, and I'll say it to you as well, and absolutely mean it. You're going to be, a multi-time guest on our podcast because you have so many good things to share. And there's so much of your story that I do know that you didn't tell. And to include, like, I wish the listeners could have a visual, and maybe when I post this, I'll include some pictures maybe of your podcast, so that those who are watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry, not for your podcast, your facility. So those of who are watching this on YouTube can see, but he's not doing justice to the unbelievably amazing facility. I worked in a Mount Sinai Beth Israel facility in New York City, and since it's urban based, by its very nature, in Manhattan, it's obviously a zillion times smaller. But I know what it's like to work for a major healthcare system, and I know how tough it is to get approval for things from leadership and stuff like that. And the part of the Jeff story that he didn't tell is that he is a master at this and is really built, honestly, one of the most amazing facilities I've seen. And to get that VIP tour that you took my wife and I through and hear your story and see, and they agreed to this and they donated, they gave this much money for this, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, man,
Hmm.
you have to have a serious skill set to get that kind of stuff done.
Well, and I think you get that from taking those weird and stupid jobs that you're not really sure about. And I don't know. I'm a believer in keeping your eyes open, and the most important word when you're young is yes, and then when you turn 40, the most important word is no. I'm still trying to learn to say no a little bit more, but because I'm just an adrenaline junkie, so I just love
Yeah,
going crazy. But
yeah.
ideally, that's what we do. We tell stories and we sell. You got to be excited and passionate about it. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And I'm really happy for you too, because that's part of your story as well, is that you found something that just fits you and it's your passion and it's something you're really, to have that as part of your life where, you found your passion and it's something that you're ridiculously good at. And when you can combine those two things, I mean, that's it, from a professional standpoint. So yeah, I'm really happy for you as well.
yeah, thank you.
Um, so let's switch gears just a tiny bit. You're very involved with the Medical Fitness Association. You chair the board of directors, and you're on the executive council for the NSCA Special Population SIG. And I'll be having podcasts about what I'm getting ready to talk about in more detail in the future. But what I'd like the listeners to know is that there's this big movement going on behind the scenes right now that some organizations like the American College of Sports Medicine are front runners of, and it's basically this qualified healthcare provider movement, where some time down the road, it might be 5 years, give or take. There's going to be a subset of the fitness professional population who obtain the meet the standards and obtain the qualifications, who then may be able to they'll become non-licensed qualified healthcare providers and be able to get reimbursed through insurance, which will really open up a lot of doors. And so, as Jeff knows, we've been recently having some talks with NSCA headquarters, and one of the things that's kind of corresponding with this that hopefully will happen. We're still in the beginning stages, so I don't want to make it sound like this is a guarantee. But the NSCA has a certification called Certified Special Populations Specialist Certification, the CSPS, and we're in the beginning talks of revising this certification to try to align it with this movement, etc. So there's a lot more to the story, but with that as a general background, um, we, our executive council, and some people at the NSCA headquarters believe that it would be extremely beneficial for the NSCA and the Medical Fitness Association to collaborate somehow. And so my next question to you, if you want to just talk, you don't have to really like answer it, just like just a general, your insight, your view as to how the NSCA and the MFA might be able to collaborate and how it might benefit just everything, both organizations, the public health, fitness professionals, however you want to dive into this question. I would love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah, no, sure. And that's one of the things I've been pushing for. As you said, I'm part of the executive council for the SIG, and that's why I wanted to get involved in it. Special populations is really what the MFA does. We take care of special populations, and I see the two groups that have so much potential together, but we don't really work very well together. We haven't worked well together. So I'm hoping to see a strategic partnership with the NSCA and the MFA. One, to provide NSCA members another avenue for education, collaboration with folks that are doing medical fitness on a bigger scale. Because ultimately, the medical fitness is it's fitness. It's just smart fitness. It's really what it is.
Exactly right. That's what
It's
it
just
is.
it's just the way it should be, and it provides a safe environment. But what I see as a strength and conditioning coach myself and certified strength and conditioning specialist, I don't think that group understands that there's a whole nother world that they could work in besides just in athletics and college settings, high school settings, are certified personal trainers through the NSCA. They can have careers in fitness facilities, especially medical fitness facilities, um, that I don't think they're aware of. And so I think there's a lot of benefit for our NSCA members to learn more and open up, bigger avenues for them, to potentially grow. And it's in my professional experience. I try to hire anybody that has a CSCS or a certified personal trainer through the NSCA. I find they understand working with these types of patients and clients in a different way than per se some other certifications. Um, you know, a lot of certifications focus a lot on cardiovascular training, and that's what they do for special populations. You and I both know strength training is probably, if not the most important thing, one of the most important things for these populations. And so having individuals that understand that into my facility, I find provides my members and my community with different types of trainers than per se other facilities. And so I think that collaboration between the two just makes a lot of sense. Um, and that's where I hope to see, where maybe MFA members, folks that are doing it really well, could come to the annual conference for NSCA and present, and then folks that are presenting on unique topics that you know would help medical fitness facilities could come to our annual conference and present, and kind of bring those two worlds together to help each other out.
Yeah, these two worlds really need to be brought together. As you know, and as my listeners and viewers are getting ready to know in more detail, the only certification I hold besides having a degree in kinesiology and I'm in school right now, so I'm actually in December going to have a master's in exercise and sports science. So here I am. I work in clinical settings. I've been doing this for about 20 years. I work with medical fitness population, and yet I am getting a graduate degree in exercise and sports science with a concentration in strength and conditioning. The only certification I hold right now is the NSCA CSCS, and I absolutely identify or perceive myself as a strength and conditioning coach who happens to work with clinical populations. So these two worlds really need to merge because you're exactly right. I would argue that strength and conditioning is the number one thing that pretty much everybody needs,
Mhm,
and for a whole list of reasons. But yeah, hopefully this collaboration is going to happen because it really needs to happen. And I'm going to have your back 100% on this. But yeah, I'm glad that you shared your vision and you um, voiced it extremely well. We need to have, in my opinion, more strength and conditioning coaches who work in clinical settings and work in
mhm,
medical fitness. And that's kind of what I mean, clinical slash medical fitness
mhm,
settings. Because we're all manipulating the same variables: frequency, volume, intensity, sets, reps, rest periods, etc. We're manipulating the same variables, whether it's a competitive athlete or the 78-year-old who's frail or the 50-some-year-old who has metabolic syndrome or whatever the case may be. It's the same variables, and we all need to progress, get stronger, get more conditioned. So the two worlds absolutely need to merge, without a
mhm,
doubt. So now, when I was in at your facility in Winchester, one of the things that we didn't really get to talk in much detail about, that I would like you to talk about now, is that you have this unique provider referral program. So, that's part of what this podcast is all about, is connecting clinicians in fitness, um, and again, the medical world with the fitness world. And so you have this unique provider referral program called MyFitRx.
mhm,
And you've talked about you've described them as a true medical integration. So can you tell myself and the viewers a little bit more about this program, how it started, how it evolved, the current structure, nuts and bolts, and also along with your response, what do you mean when you say medical integration? By the way, most people looking for the services of a fitness professional are really just looking for information on how to get started on the right path, not to pay for training sessions every week for months or years on end. For the 60 to 70% of people with chronic disease and or joint pain, they're also looking for someone who can help them develop a clinically safe, individualized exercise program that takes their conditions into consideration. If you're interested in getting yourself, or for clinicians, your patients started on a safe, cost friendly medical fitness program, you can find more information about the virtual services we offer at mrfinstitute.org/services. We staff only degreed kinesiologists and exercise physiologists and will work with your healthcare providers in the design of your exercise program. For the clinicians listening in, you can add this virtual service as a reduced cost option for your patients. Check out our website and send us an email, and we'll give you the details about this unique and much needed service.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, so this program has evolved over the years. It started about 20 years ago here at Valley Health. Before I even started here, we had a very small facility over in the rehab hospital, and they started a program they called Fit for Surgery. So helping individuals prepare for elective surgeries, whether it's shoulders, knees, hips. Basically, they did an 8-week program, had a provider referral in and for it, had expectations of what they wanted to do, and then they worked with these clients one on one for a very low price. And what was nice about it was it started off with an assessment, and it ended with an reassessment. So you were able to get some type of outcome measurements from an 8-week program. So we'll fast forward a little bit from that time frame. 18 years ago, I came on board and they introduced me into that. And I love the idea of the program. And I say, well, maybe we can make this bigger and make it available to more individuals. So we rebranded it. We called it Moving Forward. So I like that name because what are you going to do after chronic condition, or you leave the hospital? We'll move forward. And so we started with 6 other programs. I think we did diabetes, we did a cardiac one, um, we did pulmonary, and so on down the road. Still keeping the 8-week program, doing the intake and the discharge, and still one-on-one visits. Was pretty successful, but it did have some drawbacks, which the rate limiting factor for the program was doing one-on-one types of exercise training. You couldn't see too much volume. So in order to really kind of change the population or make the program viable, we needed to figure out a way to be able to do it at volume. And so we work with a company called Power Wellness out of Chicago, and they took that program and kind of morphed it into another program and rebranded it, and they called it Next Steps, which I really like that name. What's your next step after oncology? What's your next step
That's
after
the
physical therapy?
that's always the big question for everybody, right? Because they get
Yeah,
thrown on these exercise programs or out into the abyss. So
yeah.
what's the real next step?
Yeah. So what's your next step? So we called it Next Steps. And we had, I think, 9 programs. We added a few more programs into that. But what we did, because these programs are only $99. And basically these individuals get 2-month membership in our facility, full access to everything, and then they get either one-on-one training. But what we ended up doing was treating it more like small group training. So we would take 5 individuals to one we call them medical integration specialist is the term for the folks that work with this population. And basically it's cardiac rehab the way we set it up. It's supervised sessions. We'll set them up with a program, and work through their program, but they're doing their exercise while we supervise and provide guidance. So we were able to see more volume that way and actually almost cover the cost of the program. It was actually kind of a money loser. Um, and would ask me a lot at the times, why would you offer a program for so cheap? Well, I didn't want the fee to be the barrier for these folks coming in because they're already scared. They most likely got their chronic conditions because they didn't exercise and they were afraid of exercise and had a stereotype of what a gym is. The unique thing about a medical fitness facility is we attract the 80% of the population who don't exercise in a gym setting because they see it's safe. It's just a different little model. And so these individuals, what we ended up finding out was the transition rate after the 8-week program into general membership was super high. Currently, we're at 82%. So 8 people out of 10 that go through this program join our center. And honestly, now with my current, I guess, stats, um, I have an average length of stay for folks that go through our MyFitRx of 36 months, where my general population is about 24 months. So I keep them for a year longer. I'm able to help them for a year longer on average. And so one of the things I kind of talked about before was, that's where we meet the mission. It's also where we make the money on it. So I look at it as a marketing expense, $99. We lose a little bit of money, but it's getting these people in the door. But I'm getting them set up on a program and comfortable and building that camaraderie between themselves as well as our staff to kind of create this huge and beautiful culture that we have in this facility. So we'll kind of step back a little bit to how we got into MyFitRx. We had a trademark on Next Steps, but we lost our trademark because we filed it incorrectly, and so we had to come up with a new name during COVID. And so Power Wellness hired and retained a company called the Brand Institute, and it was compiled of a lot of physicians and providers, and they basically kind of picked out the name MyFitRx was interesting to them, and they would provide, um, their referrals to this is what they said, and they designed our collateral, helped provide what kind of pictures and the feel and the look of it, and it's been fantastically, I guess, implemented. And so now we have 10 complete programs. And what do we do now? We're able to see, depending on the severity of the individual, we'll see 10 clients per one staff member. So the volume, I can drive that volume in. Um, for the supervised sessions. And we do supervised sessions at different times throughout the day, evenings. We do them on land and sea. So we also do it in the pools. Or they can come in on an independent exercise and do it and check in with our medical integration specialist, or we'll prescribe them certain classes to go to. So, like we have a pretty robust rock steady program here. So our Parkinson's clients, we usually put them into the rock steady class as opposed to supervised exercise because they're getting a little bit more specialized training on that aspect of it. And like I said, it's a very unique program, very well received. So that's kind of the history of it. What else did you ask on that?
Well, first of all, this is amazing. Like it's amazing. And since I work in this world and was never have never heard of something like this or involved or whatever, one of the questions that comes to my mind is this something that is going on above and beyond, your facility? Is it something that can be scaled bigger? Is it, are there
Oh
bigger
yeah,
dreams for this or and actually just the medical fitness industry itself?
yeah. No, so like I said, I work with a company called Power Wellness, and they manage 30 medical fitness facilities around the United States, and those facilities run this program.
Gotcha.
And so all of our data is compiled centrally through
Gotcha.
this company. So we're able to show not only our center's outcomes, but we can show much bigger, sample sizes. Our N, when we look at 30 centers, is 7,500, clients have had a pre and post pre and post. We also published some data not too long ago, and I can get that study to you if you want. But
Yeah.
basically, it's a lot like the ACSM's exercises medicine. It's basically looking
Yeah.
at that format and figuring out what works best for you. So a lot of places
Mhm.
around the country are offering these types of programs, specifically as the Medical Fitness Association goes. That's one of the things that are required if you want to become a certified medical fitness facility, is you need to run what I call medical integration. And I do remember now you asked me about what true medical integration is. True medical integration is where the fitness center integrates into a healthcare system. You don't have to be owned or operated by a health system or a hospital, but you reach out to these providers and work together on ways to best help them treat their patients. You become part of the patient's care. The plan of care is fitness. And so that's what I consider integration. One example of that is our oncology program here. We were able to get a grant from our foundation to provide $5,000 in scholarships for 50 cancer patients to come over and do this program where they don't have to pay. So that's a cool integration.
Really
Um,
is.
and then, in medical fitness facilities, we implement what we call the Medical Advisory Committee, or MAC, is what I call it. And then, so here in this facility, I've got 17 providers that we meet quarterly, and we discuss everything in the center from, what kind of testing protocols are we doing, what protocols are we assigning to individuals, any programs that we want to offer, any new equipment I want to bring in. I get their feedback, um, and then we shall also show them the outcomes from this. And so part of the expectation is that they provide referrals to us. They're more of our liaison into the provider world, and so they help get us in the door and talk to other colleagues and provide, because they see firsthand that what we're offering is different than you know a $10 a month club where we just come
Yeah.
in and we want you to use this facility.
Yeah.
So that's what I consider medical integration. Plus, it sounds kind of cool.
Absolutely
You
it
got to be able to
does.
sell it too.
Yeah. Are these clinicians across a pretty wide spectrum of care
Yeah, so we have them from every background, and what I try to target into the MAC would be individuals that would fit into these 10 categories. So, like, if I look at it now, so we've got cancer fitness, cardiac fitness, cognitive health, diabetes fitness, fit for surgery, functional fitness. We have orthopedic fitness, and so that's somebody coming out of rehab, pulmonary fitness, transitional care. Transitional just could even mean, somebody who's elderly, never used a gym, but wants a little bit more guidance. Provider is going to recommend, provide us a referral for that. And then weight management. Now we are looking at adding a few more here in this year, but those are the categories. So we try to find providers into that realm, whether it's the physician or the nurse practitioner or the physician assistant. I find usually the PAs and the NPs, they get to spend a lot more time with patients, and they
yeah.
provide me a generally the most types of referrals.
Yeah. My first job out of college was at Duke University Medical Centers. At the time, it was called the Diet and Fitness Center, and they had a medical, fitness, nutrition, and behavior components. And if I remember correctly, it was either once a week or it was was it once a week? No, I think it might have been like once every 2 weeks or something like that. But the point is that we sat at the table and we all communicating with each other on what was going on, and the cohorts coming in and maybe outlier situations we talk about or something like that. But I've definitely, since I've worked at different hospital settings and also different private practice settings, I've totally seen both sides of the fence, and it seems to be pretty polarized. It's either set up and in the model where you're communicating with each other, which is the key to success, or there's no communication going on at all, and everyone's just acting as their own entity, which is the key to failure.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
so
mean, I see that a lot. There's a lot of siloed views, and so and that's just where whoever's running your facility, whoever's doing your programs, have to just get out and hit the pavement. You got to go knock on doors. You got to take. You can't take no for an answer. And really what you got to find out is what are their problems and how do you solve their problems for them? They don't have a lot of time. Providers don't have a lot of time with patients. They're just like, it's just like everybody else. We got to make money. We got to, no margin, no mission. So we got to get people in the door and out the door. And they all talk and say, hey, you need to lose weight or you need to exercise, but they don't have enough time to talk about that. So that's where getting in and understanding the nurse practitioners, the PAs, the providers, the physicians understand there's a program, and that's how we can help you manage your patient. All you have to do is provide them, whether it's a paper referral, or if you can get onto your electronic medical record, make it easy for them to refer to you, and they will come. And I think one of the other biggest things I tell people, it's silly, but I'm a big card fan. When providers send you referrals and they complete the program, have that client send a thank you note. You mail it back to the physician, the provider, whoever the referrer was. We're all humans, and we all like to know that we did something good that made somebody happy. And so it's kind of like a drug. Once you do it once, they're going to want to keep sending people because they want, people to say, "Oh, thank you so much. This was the greatest
Yeah.
thing ever." And that's an
Yeah.
easy, cheap way to do it and get more referrals. I've got a whole bunch of things like that. It's, after doing this for 18 years and, banging my head against the wall for so many times, you
Yeah.
kind of figure out where the cracks are and, how to catch the flies with the honey and what works.
Yeah. And the answers are fairly easy once you, right?
Yeah, don't
it's not like
overthink
this
it.
is rocket science.
Oh, we overthink everything in this world, and
Yeah.
Occam's razor is usually pretty accurate. The simplest thing is
Yeah.
usually the best thing and the
Yeah.
right thing.
So before we jump on to the next subject, I want to make sure the listeners understand that what Jeff just talked about, because I get questions all the time from trainers who don't work in clinical settings or a medical fitness facility, who work either as independent trainers or as working in the local gym or health club and don't have that direct access to clinicians for referrals. Well, how do I go about this? Well, Jeff actually just gave the answer to that question because, when I first met him and I was still chairing this member interest group for the ACLM, and we were trying to create this patient referral subcommittee, which our goal was really to put down on paper and then ultimately create some sort of course on what are the barriers, or what I actually like to call perceived barriers, because most barriers aren't really barriers, they're perceived barriers. And a lot of them you can actually use as facilitators for referral. They aren't barriers to referral, they can be facilitators. But we were working on this stuff, and here I'm listening to, again, the chair of the board of directors of the Medical Fitness Association talking about how he'll go into clinics and he'll cold call literally what he just described, and he won't leave, he won't take no for an answer. And so Jeff would talk to me about that he would go into these clinics. He won't take no for an answer. He'll sit there for 2 hours if he needs to, but he has coupons or things in hand to give them because his ultimate goal is to get back into the facility, and so he can get even more of their attention and maybe do a lunch and learn or something like that. So what he just described is really the answer to the question. And so yes, fitness professionals, we need to be more proactive, because the truth is they're not going to reach out to us,
Mhm.
and they're busy and they don't even think about it and stuff like that. So we have to make ourselves known to them. And Jeff is a master at this. I've learned so much from him on that.
Yeah, and just be confident. Be confident in
Yes.
yourself. What we do is a special skill.
Yes.
We may not have, a license to go with it and aren't able to bill insurance, but what we do with clients is far more advanced than what most other types of clinicians are doing with individuals. And it takes a lot of education and a lot of talent to be able to change and change someone's lifestyle and to keep them coming and keep them consistent, and to keep them doing it by paying out of pocket with their
That's
own
right.
money.
That's
It's a
right.
special, special thing. And
It
so
really is.
you have that ability and you just have to believe in yourself and speak highly of what you do. Now, if you're a terrible trainer, don't do that. He'll give us all bad raps. But yeah, but if you're listening to this podcast, you're not a bad trainer or
Yeah.
a coach.
Yeah. And this is actually one of the reasons why I want to have you back, because we're talking about things. Some of the things that we're talking about right now is from more of like that bird's eye view, but there's certain things that I want to then, hone in on, and then this is
Mhm.
absolutely one of them, and really just hone on a specific subject like this one. So, also when you were giving me that VIP tour a couple months ago, Valley Health, you were talking to me about, as we were walking around, you were talking to me about that you have this what you call a cradle to grave fitness, and you talked about it on your Escape Your Limits podcast, and a little bit about it with me at Valley Health a couple months ago. So, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by that?
Yeah, no, like I said before, yeah, one of the things I try to do is, you know, I try to make things like Jeff proof, or that's what I tell my staff, make it Jeff proof. But in order to do that, it's got to kind of sound cool and fun, and you got to be able to sell it. So I don't know. That just came to me when I was doing the podcast out in California with Matthew, and I said, what we actually do is cradle to grave fitness. Now, we didn't always do that. Um, we were mainly an adult facility, very strict medical fitness facility. We didn't do swim lessons. We didn't have kids in here other than our kids zone, and I didn't like that. And it took me a little while to figure out, you can change anything you don't like in this world. You just got to walk through the door and do it. Just because someone told me this is what we are, doesn't mean that's what we need to be. And so what I truly believe medical fitness is fitness for everybody. Fitness from 6 months of age all the way up till you die, and that's what I call and coined it. Cradle to grave fitness, because it's super important not only to get our seniors in here and folks with chronic conditions, but it's the preventative medicine aspect of it, of keeping people out of the hospital. But I think what's most important, and you hear these buzzwords all the time, population health and health systems are all talking about population health. How we got to control the health of the population. Well, not not to put up fault, but we're doing that right now through medication. Um, and we're only going to be treating the symptoms of these issues and not treating the actual issues. So having a facility that doesn't bring kids in, you're never going to change the population. So my view, and why I kind of changed the whole model here was, one, I want my kids in the kids zone seeing their parents exercise so they see that that's a normal behavior in life. And then I feel they're going to be more likely to exercise and be exercisers in their life as they grow up because they've seen their parents do it. Um, we'll also do yoga and Pilates and stretching and fun kind of activities in our kids zone. Those kids are anywhere from 6 months of age to 11. But then I brought in something different in the facility. Now there does need to be some kinds of boundaries where we're working with cardiac patients or people coming in with an external defibrillator on. They don't need screaming kids running around beside them. So there has to be some kind of control guidelines on that. And so when you came into the facility, you saw my new functional training space, which
Yes.
is, it's part of the fitness floor, but it's walled off and it's 6,000 square feet. And we ended up partnering with Parisi Speed School.
Yeah.
And the reason
Nice.
why I wanted to do Parisi Speed School is Bill Parisi has a lot of the same views and philosophies on exercise that I do. They have a medical advisory team that provides their content and helps train their master trainers, which then trains the trainers, um, their performance trainers throughout their network. And it was kind of a turnkey. And a lot of folks do sports performance, and football is always a big thing. In my professional experience, those schools or high schools that have athletics, some of them have strength coaches, and they teach them the strength aspects of what they need to do for the sport. What they don't do is they don't teach speed. And Parisi Speed School teaches speed, and that's the most important skill any athlete can have in any game. So instead of coming up with thousands of different types of programs and limiting it, we just train speed. But not only speed, we train these athletes mentally. I'm lucky to have my strength and conditioning manager is also got a sports psychology minor, 2 masters in athletic coaching and all that stuff. So we're able to provide that to our children and build them up and build their confidence and let them see that they can progress into life and that this is normal. So I think that's how we're going to control the population and health is we start with the youngsters and build that and ingrain it. It's going to take time, but right now it's hard to go backwards, but it can be done. But you also have to want to do it. And I
Yeah.
find the young people want to do it.
Yeah. Honestly, and I really mean this. This is like just another ingenious thing to build this into your model. That yeah, maybe there's other facilities doing this, but medical fitness facilities, but I don't know of any, and like who else is doing this. But it's exactly right, and it's also just a beautiful thing. It really is, just to bring again these young children in and get them involved, get them in this environment, get them to see that this is normal, and mommy and daddy are doing this, and all that stuff. And uh, Dr. Rick Howard is on our executive council. Just as one example, I don't want to. I could name a million names, but using uh, Rick as an example and his passion for long-term athletic development and
Mhm.
just starting people early so that we can get them to keep going later and stay healthier in later life and all that stuff. And you and I grew up athletes, so it's part of our DNA, and that's part of the reason why we have the passion that we do is
Mhm.
because we want everybody to be like this. But yeah, you've implemented this as a model in a medical fitness facility. I've seen it now personally, and it is just it's a beautiful thing. Really is.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt. It does help generate revenue, which
Yeah.
it's not a bad word to say making money. Like
Yeah.
I tell people, no margin, there's no mission. And so that's 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 an area. I think someone asked me once what where I see the future of the MFA going. And that's where I see it as we have to learn how to make money in order to keep our great programs running. And the way that we do that is collaborating with other outside individuals like commercial gyms, find out what they do well
Yes.
and learn from them and
Yes.
implement them into our facility. And then where the commercial gyms can potentially learn from the medical fitness facilities on how to provide safe,
Yes.
attractive facilities that will attract more people. Because ultimately, fitness is in an industry, whether it's medical fitness industry, commercial industry, corporate industry, fitness, whatever. It's fitness. It's fitness industry, and what our goal should be, and what I believe, the future for the MFA is kind of helping lead that way, is to provide a place where we can get more people moving in
Yes.
a safe environment and to feel comfortable doing it, so that way we can actually change the world.
Yeah. No, that is so awesome, man. So, yeah, so everything we talked about today, um, or at least a lot of the things we talked about today, we can then start breaking down into more specific topics for some future podcasts. As we wrap this one up, um, I know that we're obviously connected on LinkedIn, and I see you post on there on occasion and comment on other people's um, posts as well. My understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that other than LinkedIn, you might not be a real big, on a whole bunch of social media platforms. But I would like for people to know how to either, follow what you're
Hmm.
doing or connect with you if possible. And if you
Yeah.
have any other parting thoughts along that we missed, anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that we say before we end this one, you can
Yeah,
chime in on
no
that as
problem.
well.
Well, I'm always reacting to email. I'm 46. I'm old, I guess, so I like email. My email is jjeran@valleyhealthlink.com. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I like that one. I'm only on Facebook because you made me get on Facebook,
Exactly right.
which
I
has got me
forced
in
you to do
trouble now because now all I do is buy car parts and stuff for my cars, and I spend money on Facebook. I only have one friend, it's my wife, so I will not accept your friend requests. So don't connect to me on that. But LinkedIn, I will talk to you and connect with. We do have an Instagram page, which here at the center that really it's our Parisi program. So if you really want to see some cool stuff, Chris Chris Armel has an Instagram page for our center, and all the time showing videos on that. And then our website here is vhwellfit.com. You can check out any of the things I talked about. The MyFitRx is on that webpage. You'll learn a little bit more and some of the things that we're doing. But I take calls from people all over the country all the time. It's just part of what I do with the MFA. I love to answer questions and help people. So, like I said, we're all in it together, and so
Yeah.
I am not afraid to share.
Yeah. Jeff, thanks so much for being a guest on the show and for your friendship as well. Um, and so you and I are obviously going to be talking continuously, but so it's not like this is a hey, see you, and I won't talk to you again for another year or whatever. But again, thanks for so much for everything you shared, all the wisdom and your experience, and for being a guest on the show.
All right, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, brother.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation, understand why Jeff is an all-star in this space, and continue to come back to listen to him and the other guests on our show. Please go to mrfinstitute.org and our YouTube channel at the Medical Fitness Podcast for information on how to learn more about the education we offer and to stay current with our podcast series. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.